of the world. To the heart of innovation, this is Opportunities to Consider with your host, author, speaker, and corporate strategist, Hunter Gaylor.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special edition of the Markets Hunter program. We are so excited to have you here. We're coming to you actually the last week of March, so we've got a lot of great updates from some of our companies. I'm going to be joined by one of our special guests today, Robert Lakowski, who's the CEO of Quantum Computing, Inc. You will see his little hashtag down here, stock symbol QUBT. So if you're not following the company, make sure you follow the company. As you know, the Markets Hunter show brings you the latest insights and analysis on the global financial markets. I am your host, and today, as I said, we're going to be talking about QUBT. We had a great conversation with Robert last time on everything that was going on with his company. We talked a lot about some of the supply chain, what he's doing with some of his current contracts that he has from LiDAR. But now, as the Market Hunter show goes, we're going to dive deep into what the future of quantum computing looks like. And that's why we do these weekly quantum updates with the CEO himself. So we bring you that larger, more in-depth coverage. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in special guest, Robert Lakowski. Robert, great to have you on the program today.
Hey, Rob. Thanks very much, Hunter. It's great to be back here. I appreciate it.
No, thank you so much I always enjoy our conversations. It's really on the forefront of innovation is what I like to say. But, Bob, I really want to dive into some of the industry applications I've been reading about. We've seen some headlines with Fujitsu. We've seen some headlines with what IBM is doing, all the big name players. Obviously, you're doing some big stuff. And I want to talk about a recent press release, which I thought was an incredible advancement for your company. And that was the Quantum Computing, Inc. appoints security and cryptography expert Brian, and I'm going to butcher his last name, Lamacchia, to your technical advisory board. And I hope I pronounced his name correctly, and I will post this link for all of our audience members to look and see when this is down across all of our links. But incredible background. You're already doing stuff with Rabobank and fraud detection. We've talked about some of the cryptography that you're working on with the international patents. What is this appointment? Why this appointment? Kind of walk me through this for our audience.
Yeah, sure. Listen, this is a tremendous opportunity for us. Let me give you some insight to the way I think, and then what we're trying to do for the company here and bringing experts like this on. So I started a technical advisory board, which is ostensibly something that that I sat on when I was back in the government, in the intelligence community, consulting at some pretty senior levels. We were providing sort of outside advice to the DCI and the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, on advancing technologies. Right. The benefit of being able to do that was that we didn't have any tie to the outcome of these decisions that they made. We just basically were out there talking about what technologies could do from a national security perspective and what we had as a country had to be aware of. So that was an extremely effective body, and it still today reverberates with the contributions that have been made to the intelligence community. So when I started QCI, I knew I'd get to a point where I'd need some outside thinking, right? I mean, I'm the CEO of the company, that's great, but really the smart people are on the outside of the company. We've got a lot of smart people on the inside of the company. But to know what's going on in the marketplace and know what's going on in technology, I need to get access to those people, and I need to have their unvarnished opinion about what's going on, right? You can't be sitting in a leadership role thinking that you're always doing the right thing. You've always got to be questioning what's going on around you to make sure you're staying on the innovation edge. So bringing folks like Brian Lamacchia and others, I have Jim Simon, who also came out of the intelligence community, in fact, ran the intelligence science board that I was on. He managed that whole group, and I've asked Jim to come on as my executive director for my technology advisory board to replicate what we did there. Not to be an intelligence organization, just to bring great minds together to think about the things that we could be doing and the things that I should be doing as a CEO to make sure I'm staying innovative. So Jim was my first appointment. Brian's my second appointment based upon Jim's recommendation, because Brian represents some really cutting edge thinking that's come out of that community. He was a very senior person at Microsoft. We're very fortunate to have him on board as our technical advisor. It's not a full-time position, it's a part-time advisory role. Sure. But importantly to that is the fact that I'm going to gain access to his thinking and the exposure that he's had in the community for the areas that we're interested in, right? Quantum random number generation, cybersecurity, and all the things we can bring to the table on that. Brian's just going to be one of many that are, not many, but one of several I'm bringing on board to the company that are going to help me make sure that I'm thinking about the right things for innovation to bring value to our shareholders.
Well, Bob, here's what I will say. As market hunters, we hunt the market, right? So we do our research, we look at the fundamentals of the company. And I have to say, when looking into his particular pedigree, PhD and degrees in electrical engineering and computer science from MIT, respectively well-published author and inventor, co-author on 35 issued U.S. patents, multiple international patents. And I do know there was some news that came out about quantum, which we did talk about on getting some international patents. So, that's incredible development. And I always think that the more, top level advisory like what you're doing is critical. Let's move a step forward into getting kind of some of your insight, Bob, into the world of AI. Okay.
Sure.
We've talked about the industry. We've talked about, kind of on the outskirts, this effect that ChatGPT now has had on industry. In fact, I will say this, and this is a shameless plug to my obsession with ChatGPT, but when it came out, I got an email from OpenTable now that OpenTable is now using, which is the reservation tool that you can make for. Now, Bob, I can use ChatGPT to not only recommend the restaurants, but then also go in and they can make my reservations for me. So it's almost eliminating a lot of these service level jobs. Now, we talked about supply chain management very briefly in some of the areas and industries that you're targeting. Where do you see, from a futuristic perspective, QUBT leading the charge in assisting and powering AI?
Well, so let's go back to the beginning on the AI piece, because it's an enormously interesting topic, right? AI has been around for decades.
Right.
And the application of AI, however, has only been really in the past 10 years with any degree of success that people can really point to, because there were two fundamental things that were missing, I think, and this is just not my thinking, but if you look at the literature, number one, it was data. And the explosion of data over the past 10 years or within the past 20 years for sure, but certainly, and I don't know what the exponential increase of data is over any given period of time, but there's just been an absolute explosion of data. And trying to make sense out of that data is one of the things that has fueled the application of artificial intelligence technologies. Secondarily, or actually maybe not secondarily, but more importantly perhaps, is the ability for large-scale computer systems to be able to process this information. So you have the supercomputers, the numerous GPUs out there, you've got NVIDIA's GPUs, you've got all this computing power going to be able to process this information, which is fundamentally the thing, right? Speed and the ability to process this data in a highly complex way and the capacity to do that is what's going to really propel AI into the future. So we all know Moore's law and the limits of classical computing, and this is where we always talk about where quantum computing is going to contribute to. Computing as a domain has a specific application in the AI world for processing power, for speed, and capacity to process a large amount of data. So when we can apply both classical computing and AI and quantum computing together against, you really begin to see AI off as a real domain. Now, ChatGPT is a really interesting example. I don't pretend to be an expert on ChatGPT, but from my understanding of it, ChatGPT itself had been developed several years ago and is now being used as effectively a very good marketing tool. It's a very effective tool to demonstrate what AI can do, and it's certainly brought it to the forefront of conversations, right? But AI is so much more than ChatGPT.
Sure.
Natural language processing and the ability to discern, content and intent of content is a very difficult thing to do. And ChatGPT is doing an excellent job at that right now. I mean, you can, we've all tested it, I'm sure, and you can put in some arcane question that you would think nobody's going to have an answer to. And based upon the data that's been collected up until, I think, 2021, you'll come up with an excellent answer, right? Now, there's a lot of ethical issues about AI we're not going to get into, as biases and all the things that can go into that. But in terms of just pure technology, what you can do with AI and the areas that we as Quantum Computing Inc. can contribute to is an area that right now I think is very hot. So reservoir computing, I don't know if you've ever heard of that term of reservoir computing.
We've spoke about it. We've spoke about it.
We did, right?
You have the reservoir computer, so that's good.
That's right. Well, we have a combination. It's a hybrid. It's actually a classical and a reservoir computer together that allows us to be able to take the best of both. Because our AI systems have to be hybrid because we use photonic and electronic architecture, and the photonic architecture is extremely fast, extremely energy efficient, and it inherently supports large-scale processing. But it's a bit challenging to prepare and interact and store many photonic signals. So consequently, we have to tweak it a little bit. On the other hand, electronic signals in conventional computers are easy to create and manipulate, and their processing speed and their ability to do parallel processing are capped. So if you put those two capabilities together, you can harvest the benefits of both. And that's precisely what we do with our reservoir computer. We take the best of both worlds. We actually combine quantum computing, classical computing together to create a reservoir computer that can do neural networks beyond the capability of any classical computer today.
So, Bob, on that, one of the big questions we talk about in the application world, especially when we're talking about quantifying large amounts of data, we talk about drug processing and manufacturing for new drugs, right? That's a lot of data. We talk about the financial markets, huge data, predictive analytics, our predictive analysis. We look at portfolio management. We look at strategic things, et cetera, et cetera. And supply chain, where you have a lot of nodes all around the place. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about if AI has all these different applications, okay? Would it seem to me that having the reservoir computer power AI, we can create even better solutions to help these industries adapt to this changing environment?
We absolutely can. And the applications for our reservoir computer in particular, particularly on the predictive side and the analytics side, is an area that I think we can really contribute to. And we're just beginning to edge into that, right? We've been testing our reservoir computer. We've been doing some modeling on stock portfolios with a high degree of success. That's internal modeling, so we've got to validate that success externally, just to be pure about it. Sure. But we're already getting very good results in stock model analysis and prediction. So it's natural to extend these into other areas, such as talk about supply chain. And the areas that supply chain are really interesting is the prediction of maintenance schedules. So the big thing about, one area, if you think about, and I'm just saying this as an example because I know this to be true, is, aircraft maintenance schedules. So today, aircraft, commercial aircraft fly, and they're giving a lot of data all the time while they're in flight. Health of the aircraft, performance of the aircraft, various maintenance parts, right? So if a part needs to be maintained when the aircraft lands and it goes, everybody deplanes while they're going through that next evolution of onboarding everybody, they can actually do maintenance because they've gotten word ahead of time that a part needs to be maintained or replaced. And by the time they get on the ground, that part's waiting for them at the tarmac, so they can do quick turnaround. So you're not keeping a plane off the circuit. So that predictive analysis of being able to take all that data and do prediction based upon maintenance schedules and making sure you've got the right inventory for parts, especially for aircraft, is a huge benefit. That's the type of problem we can certainly contribute to.
Well, it's very interesting, Bob. You're speaking and talking about a big passion of mine, which is the aviation space. And for a lot of the people that understand and follow the market hunters know that I was very heavily involved with Abjet and some of the private aviation companies out there. But from an application perspective, maintenance was always a major issue, especially when you're going to buy an aircraft, sell an aircraft.
Right.
And what you're talking about here is literally parts maintenance, which makes up a massive amount of industry, from where parts are located, the wear and tear, the number of landing hours, fuel consumption, all of these things that go into it that up to date have not really had the advanced AI systems to be able to have greater insight and intelligence into the market. And so I definitely see how there's a massive use case here, because I mean, you look at the aviation industry is a multi-cajillion dollar industry, right? They're moving people all around the world. And it's not just, landing gears and parts and wings and engines. It's food, it's ice, it's all of the things.
All of those supply chains. Exactly right.
And that's what's really incredible. So it's really good to know that at least your company in QUBT is looking into these matters, because that's really, where's the focus of the company? Where's it going? What can we really do? And I like that aspect. I like how, look, here's the software stack, here's the hardware. We want to make it cost effective for companies that aren't IBM or Watson or any of these other companies we've talked about in the future or in the past, to come in and say, look, we've got a challenge. We want to be able to input our data and potentially solve some of our problems by using the Reservoir Computer, the hybrid models, the Dirac 1, the Dirac 2, the things that you have coming out, which is incredible. Bob, I want to shift the conversation just a little bit into... Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
If I may interrupt you just to kind of close that point out, because you bring up a good point, right? We're a small company, and small companies succeed by being focused, right? And, so when I talk about the myriad of capabilities we have, remember the core technology is our photonic quantum computing capability, which scales to a number of different applications. So, it's not quite build once, use many times. In the case of the hybrid reservoir computer, we have to do a little bit more engineering on the reservoir side. But everything else we're doing on the photonic quantum computing side is really an amplification of the initial core capability. And what's important about that is that we can stay focused on what we do really well, and we can work with partners to get into the marketplace. So right now we're engaged in a number of partner discussions to be able to take our technology and bring it into the marketplace. When you talk about supply chain, we don't want to be the supply chain experts. We want to power the supply chain experts. The old classic Intel inside someday might be QCI inside, because what we care about most is making sure we provide and develop the best technology that can be applied for a myriad of solutions, depending upon what our partners in the industry want to be able to do. So, our shareholders should be really encouraged by the fact that if you think about QCI as being a hub of intellectual capability, intellectual property capability, and each one of those spokes, respective markets, are going to be partner channels and opportunities for us to get into the marketplace based upon our partnerships, that should be music to their ears, because that's not a capital intensive environment. We're spending our money where we know we have to spend it, and we're letting our partners be able to take that capability into the marketplace to benefit from it. So that's really the model.
So on that, just to kind of build off that point, QUBT's strategy, based on what you're saying, is to really make this a multi-prong approach into industry by equipping industry experts and enabling them with the right tool to be able to help their businesses scale, right?
That's exactly
very much that Intel inside that you're saying. Would that be the correct?
That is exactly correct. And when we start talking about, and let me tell you, it's not too far-fetched to talk about Intel inside in terms of a concept, because remember, with the last time we spoke, we're actually creating our own quantum photonic computing chips, right? We make them now. We make them in a contract lab, and we're in the process of negotiating on building our own laboratory or a fab that we can manufacture our chips at scale. And these chips are effectively going to be the powerhouse of all of our quantum computing capability.
So that right there, I think for the Market Hunters audience, the people that are listening, the people that will see this as they go back and they look at the March update, because we're coming out of March, we're going to go into April, so we're going to move into Q2 very quickly here. And obviously, the whole market's been rattled by everything that happened with Silicon Valley Bank and everything. But the way that the Market Hunters approach is, and I am not the Jim Cramer of the world, okay? I'm the Market Hunter.
Thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully, exactly. Well, I appreciate the endorsement, but Bob, the way we look at companies, this is the fundamentals. We look at the leadership. We look at the approach. We look at the fact that you have strategic advisors. You're building the right advisory board. You're doing the right things, and we don't look at this as, oh, let's just go quickly trade a stock and this is some day trading thing. This is really building the future of what enterprise looks like, and that's really what I want the audience to understand that is watching this, because listen, folks, listen to what he just said. They're building the hybrid. It's the best of breed. They're looking at different applications. They're creating the equipment that's needed for these industries to be able to move forward in a capacity with tools that they've never had before. That's going to help them save time, money, effort, engineering, research, especially with the advancement of AI. And I think when we look at something like, a quantum computing, industry company, Quantum Computing Inc., QUBT, this is a no-brainer when these applications are being put out there, Bob. This is what I'm trying to figure out. When the industry starts realizing that there is an affordable, attainable product on the market, which you have, that allows them to solve problems at a faster and more cost-effective manner, then it benefits the entire society. It benefits the entire ecosystem.
Right.
And I think that's a huge point.
Well, I mean, and if I may build on that for a moment, because
please.
that is the mission of this company. I think I mentioned that to you also the last time we got together was, when Q Photon and QCI came together, we had aligned visions in terms of what we were looking to achieve independently of each other. And then when we started talking, it became very clear that both companies were extremely aligned on trying to democratize quantum computing. And then maybe that's just an overworded word, but at the end of the day, I want to sell computers to every business out there that wants to use a quantum computer. And that's a lot of businesses, right? That's not the Fortune 50 or the Fortune 500. It's even beyond the Fortune 5,000. There's no reason with the computer capability that we have, and ultimately to the cost points we're going to be able to get to, that we are not going to be able to power the industry with quantum computing. That's a big statement, but you know what? That's a vision. That's a vision. And it's more than just a vision. We're already on that path to be able to do that. We already have a room temperature quantum computer that operates on AC power without any special infrastructure. You can put it on your desktop and plug it in, right? Now, you need to be able to program it. You need to, but in terms of the actual physical machine, that's a pretty amazing statement. And it's a quantum computer, right? Well, now contrast that with what our competitors are doing, and they're doing great work. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to slam anybody. I'm just telling you, we have just a different approach, and we're looking to try to get out there to as many companies as we possibly can.
Well, look, not that I'm biased about the company, but I like what you're doing because it's this democratization. But the way I look at it is there's room for innovation in a world of 7+ billion or whatever the number's up as of today, right? Where there has massive market potential. Ford Motor Company did a great job building the Ford Model T, but now we have multiple companies out there that are building cars. So right. The age-old saying, it takes a village to raise, a baby sometimes, right? But in this particular aspect, when you're equipping companies, which is what your vision statement is, and then I like the fact that you're calling it a vision statement. Companies have mission statements, they have vision statements, where you're at and where you're going. I remember going back for our audience, I encourage people to go back and listen to some of our first interviews with Robert, where we listened to where his company was. And that was just a few months ago to where their company is now. And we've seen tremendous market growth. They said that they were going into doing fraud detection. They're doing fraud detection. They're doing pilot programs with Rabobank. You can go watch that interview. There's a lot of different things that are coming out. They were awarded a subcontract from NASA. So this isn't a company, ladies and gentlemen, that is just sitting here talking about, what it would be nice to do, right? This is a company out there for all the listeners. This is a company that is saying what they're going to do, doing what they said they were going to do, and performing. And they're being very transparent throughout the journey, which I think is incredible for the industry. And I hope a lot of companies that are listening to this may find different aspects of how quantum can be applied to their companies. and obviously they have all the information to reach out. So, Bob, kind of in closing, I want to talk about something a little bit more generic. The average person out there now has access to ChatGPT. They're using it for their everyday activities. Okay, we're seeing where that might go. Obviously, we're limited up to the information because of the date. They stop after, I think, September 2021. When we have real-time data, talk to me about the processing speed required that I believe, and I don't want to speak out of context here, it seems to me they would need some sort of hybrid reservoir computing for the power to be able to analyze all real-time data.
Yeah, that's a true statement. And I think, that's, I think one of the reasons they're doing things, probably a couple of reasons they're doing things in a controlled environment today, right? You have a core, you have a body of data that you can keep relatively static, right? So it's not being updated continuously. And I suspect there's a lot of other training and indexing that has to go on. So when you think about the changing data and the constant need to train and the constant need to update that data, that exercise is pretty intense. And that's perfect for not just reservoir computing, but more importantly, quantum and hybrid reservoir computing. And that's an area that we're going to definitely contribute to increase the speed and the capacity of a ChatGPT or other types of AI applications, because the training set is really, I wouldn't call it certainly the Achilles heel, certainly, but it's a very critical part of the AI process. And the ability to train data on a real-time basis or near real-time basis requires a lot of computing power.
Well, I think that's definitely going to be interesting to follow that. And I am personally interested in some of the applications that quantum is going to keep, putting out there. I'm very interested in the portfolio management. Obviously, I think that's going to be very interesting. The real-time quantitative analysis that can be done on companies in real time, and just not even that, but just supply chains, weather forecasting and how that's going to affect, the whole supply chain with, airplanes and where they fly and how that, all this stuff that goes into it. So I'm very interested in continuing the journey on, Bob, and I really appreciate you taking the time out to have another kind of quantum minute here, discussing really where the future can go with this type of technology.
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. These are really enjoyable conversations because I frequently don't have the opportunity to really, get down into the weeds on some of these things. And we can even go further into them. I mean, when we talk about AI, I'd like to be able to talk about the other social consequences of AI at some point in time, right? If we could ever get down that path. But, it's an area that's fraught with opportunity and fraught with peril at the same time, right? I mean, it's an interesting challenge we're going to have in the future. But it's going to be something which is going to be enabled by quantum technology. So I recognize that, and the future is going to change, and we're going to contribute to that better outcome. I can tell you that.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I appreciate your sentiments and your statements on that, because what's missing in industry now is these long form conversations with industry executives where we can really dive deep into. Let's stop the talking points and let's get into really the effect that it has on industry, right? What are the actual consequences? Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think it's good. I don't want to say that I could potentially, that Market Hunters is the Charlie Rose of Wall Street, but maybe it will be. Maybe it'll move into the 60 minutes.
Hey, listen,
let's see what happens.
You got to start
someplace. That's exactly right. Well, listen, Bob, thank you so much for joining us. We look at having you back next week for another quantum update. We'll dive into some of the AI stuff. I know there's going to be a lot of news this week coming out, so I appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you go to quantumcomputinginc.com. Go follow their site. Their stock symbol's QUBT. Bob, you have any closing statements you'd like to leave the audience with today?
No, I think, I look forward to the next opportunity we have to talk. We're going to continue innovating all the time, right? So I think I'm not going to suggest we're going to be putting any new statements out here in the near term, but I'd say this year is going to be a great year for QUBT.
Well,
we have a lot on the plate, a lot of things we're doing. So I just look forward to working with you and talking to everybody and talking about the progress.
Well, I look forward to it, Bob. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Lakowski from Quantum Computing. We really appreciate him taking the time to really kind of go into depth as to what their company's doing. If you want and like these long form interviews where we really kind of dive in depth and talk with the leaderships of these companies, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. We're getting great feedback on Twitter. We're well over 75. We were at, close to 80,000 followers last week. We got down a little bit. I don't know what's going on. We'll have to DM Elon Musk and see why, we're going up and down, but that's okay. So make sure you follow us. This will be airing several times this week and throughout the month of April. We'll have Bob back next week. So make sure you follow his company. All the likes, descriptions, and links are in the description below. If you need to find us or you want to send it out, we have all the share buttons as well. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Follow our channel. We're growing rapidly, and we really appreciate the support. And we do have a new announcement that's coming out next week. And I did not share this with Bob, but he'll probably appreciate it. For the companies that are fans of the companies that we interview, we will be having a merchandise site where you can buy a hat that says QUBT or the future of computing is with quantum. We have all these different really cool things that are come out that you'll be able to buy, show some support for the company when you're out at the gym or you're running around doing some errands. It's really great. We like being able to support and get the name and the brand and the awareness out for these companies, because these companies that we talk to really are the backbone, of the American economic system, really the global system for that matter. So we appreciate all of you viewing. Make sure you like and subscribe. And once again, we really appreciate you being here for another episode of Markets Hunter.